Being a teenager in today's world is not always easy, but our friends at Focus are teaming up with our youth to ensure kids are staying away from drugs and alcohol. We'll tell you more up next. I'm here today with Emmit Hunter, a high school student at Depew High School, and I'm so grateful to have you today on the Sweet Buffalo Show. And we're going to be talking today about the difficulties that teens face in high school. And I hear you're doing a great job with our friends at Focus to help prevent students from, getting hooked on drugs and alcohol. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions today about what it's like being a teenager in this time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Being a teenager is kind of cool in today's modern world where we have a lot of access to social media and instant messengers and being able to have easy access to hang out with friends. But at the same time, the advancements in technology aren't everything that everyone says it is. It's not as perfect as many people would imagine. There's a lot that goes around through social media, and it's one of the easiest outlets for bullies and targets to be strewn about and posted and commented on and reposted and sent around to everyone. And a lot of parents come around and say stuff like, "You don't know how it was when I was growing up. You don't know what it was like. I didn't have that kind of technology. I could never talk to my friends. We had landlines. We had to share the phone with our family." At the same time, they don't understand what it's like for us. And when my grandfather says that to me, I could say the same thing right back to him because he wasn't attacked on the technology that he didn't have. And he didn't feel unsafe in school because technology is leading dangerous people into our buildings, and he didn't have a constant fear of what you look like because we have to post to stay up on trends, and he didn't have to grow up through this time where his parents were pushing him to be a moneymaker more than doing something he loves. And there's just so many things around that are constant pressure that our adults around us never understood. And there's a bit of sympathy for the good things that they didn't have as a kid, but they have no sympathy for us with what we have to go through as a kid because of what they didn't have.
Yeah, social media bullying has always been around, obviously, but I think before it happened at school. And then when you could go home, you were kind of probably in your safe space. As I remember with my parents, I was in my safe space, but there was nowhere for anybody to bother me once I was home. And so now I'm assuming that the kids now, even when they step off the school bus and they go home, now they're getting bullied scrolling through their phones. So it doesn't end at school. It keeps going, which I'm sure makes it even worse.
It's carried out, and even just with how my parents and grandparents had it as kids with the bullying, at school they were yelled at, they were harassed, they were teased, they were threatened to fight behind the pizza place out back, but with social media, it's an outlet to, I know where you live now. I can just show up at your door if I felt like it, and kind of this constant I'll just keep messaging you. I'll message you on a different app because you blocked me. I'm going to log into my friend's account to message you on the app in the first place. And it's kind of just a constant cycle of there's no real escape besides turning off your phone and then therefore losing contact with the people you do want to talk to.
So I've heard that you are a great example to other teens, as our friends of Focus have told us. So what do you do to just, get past all of that and to be yourself? What advice would you give to other teens? How are you doing it?
I love to just follow myself. When I post something, I don't look for validation. I make sure I love myself. And I think it's really important that, especially as teenagers in such an emotional, hormonal, and different time, that we still strive to love who we are as people and be comfortable expressing ourselves how we feel in a day and age where it's more socially accepted. And with a style like mine, there's the stereotypes, but my goal is to not be that. And I think I would just say to other teenagers, don't be a stereotype. You don't have to start smoking weed when you put on black clothing. You don't need to fail school because you put on eyeliner. You don't need to be good at school because you want to wear a dress every day. You don't need to be anything that your look says you should be.
I think that's great advice for any kids. What are you doing when you are having a difficult time? What do you do instead of, other kids might turn to drugs and alcohol? What do you do when you are having a difficult time to kind of just get past it, get through it?
Personally, I'm a very big artist. I really, really love painting. So when I'm not feeling myself, I kind of give myself some space to breathe and then end up in my bedroom painting on my wall. My father recently offered me an opportunity to paint a car, so I spent a lot of time doing that, and it was so reviving to have that kind of alone time, having my earbuds in, having a mask on, and just being able to paint freely with no one coming up to be like, I don't like it very much, because everyone loved it. And art has always been my outlet. I've made some miserable art pieces, but in some of my hardest times, I've still made some of my most beautiful pieces that most people would see as positive, because it's an easy way to outlet for me with a visual mind.
Absolutely, and art is therapy. It's therapeutic, Yeah, I'm so glad that you have that to do. I'm sure your work is beautiful.
I try very hard.
So let's talk about COVID. That must have been, it's a difficult time for many teens. We've heard that, teens were having a hard time not being with their peers, not being able to go and socialize, and they were kind of like in a dark place, and everybody was stuck in their homes. So what would you say that you were hearing about your peers or even yourself that was going through COVID?
So during COVID, there were so many different emotions. Originally, it was satisfaction that we didn't have to be at school for a while, and we would end up going back in a few weeks, and we would pick up at the end of the year where we left off, because it was mid-March. In reality, it kind of was so much different once it got past that first week, and everyone was kind of like, let's learn what Zoom is. Let's figure out what Google Meets is. Let's start using all of these different digital teaching apps, and finding ways around it was difficult. And finding ways to communicate with the friends you hadn't gotten socials of yet was difficult. Learning was difficult, especially for people similar to me with the visual mind. I pay attention best with someone in front of me, but on a camera, it's not the same. It kind of was a slow loss of motivation to keep going, because at the end of 2020, the beginning of the next school year, where everything was half and half home, half at school, it was very it's nothing. We're all gonna be dead in a year. It's gonna get to all of us at this point. And social media went straight up, and the harassment went straight up with it. The substance use went straight up with that, and then it was accepted, and school became minimal. What's it matter? Our world's going down anyways.
So it felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel, basically.
Very much so.
Well, what would you say a group like Focus, how has that helped teens in the community? I know you're a big part of Focus. How has that helped you, or how has it helped other of your peers in the schools?
Personally, I got involved with the SAD club in my school, Students Against Destructive Decisions, and I kind of found the handful of people left who weren't finding negative ways to deal with their stress as COVID came back. When I entered my freshman year of high school, that was the first time that we were there full time, but we still had masks, so it was still a little funky. I joined a handful of clubs just to get back into the swing of things, and SAD was one of them. SAD is through Focus. Focus sponsors us, Focus helps us, and provides us with many of the opportunities we carry on with. The small, maybe 6 people that were there, we were convinced we could make a difference. And I'm in my junior year, and there's more people each year since COVID, as far as I know. And Focus and some of the conferences we go to for kids escaping drugs has given me more information about why other kids turn to that, and what kind of resources we have to help us if we were to decide to turn to something like that or be in a situation where it was offered or an opportunity. Meeting Gwen in my freshman year honestly kind of helped me like think about it and really be like, I do not want to be a part of this crowd. I would like to keep helping the people who are finally strong enough to say, this isn't how I'm going to be anymore.
So what we've heard during COVID, a lot of our youth turned to drugs and alcohol during that difficult time. Do you have any knowledge of why they may have turned to that?
I believe from what I've seen through social media, from what I've heard through word of mouth and being back in school, started becoming cooler. It started looking better to us. It started becoming something where the coolest kids started using these substances and everyone wanted to follow. It became widely accepted and it was just so much easier to get a hold of. A lot of teenagers started having easier access through friends of friends of friends, through the miscellaneous adults that brought these down into their lives. And I think the fact that it became widely accepted through many different variations and flavors of teenagers kind of led it to be accepted completely throughout every different crowd. And it wasn't just the edgy kids that don't talk in class. It became the popular kids that were coping. It became the sport kids that were coping. It became everyone. And the constant just like pressure of it as well as acceptance, and it was seen as cool, just made it a thing from there.
Did you see some good people during that time that you would never expect to do something like that, turn to drugs and alcohol and then kind of spiral from there?
Very, very many. I had a group of friends and they had a very poor influence for a parent, and I kind of watched them go to their downfall and start using these and becoming a worse person and using it as an excuse to get out of homework and an excuse to get out of hanging out with people. And it became something that they wanted me to join in, and I was not really, I was very, very anxious. And from there, I kind of was just like, these are not my people anymore. I can't hang out with them anymore.
And you are wise beyond your years and very strong-willed, because, you know, it's sometimes to succumb to peer pressure, to meet friends, you know, that you think are your friends and they're doing, you know, something like drugs and alcohol. It might, you know, might say, well, that's my friend. I want to do that too. But somehow, some way, you've said, no, that's not me. And I have my own interests and this is what I'm going to do. And it sounds like you're just really doing a beautiful job of just, you know, staying on a healthy path.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all you do. Being a teenager is very different than many of the adults today remember it. The influence of social media and peer groups today intensify pressure of substance abuse, making it that much more difficult to navigate. We are so grateful for teens like Emmit, who are committed to leading a healthy, drug and addiction-free life. Having the support of young adults who live through this daily pressure is integral to creating positive change and influence. Thank you for joining us today on the Sweet Buffalo Show, Emmit.
Thank you for having me.